Okay, let us, if we may, conversation about the federal minimum wage. And I just want to start this entire conversation by pointing out the first word in that being federal, right? That's a national minimum wage. States also have minimum wages that are oftentimes higher than the federal minimum wage. Our state of California has a minimum wage twice that of the federal minimum wage. Our federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. It's been that way since 2008. But our state minimum wage, I believe, is approaching 15, if it's not there yet already. Cities also have minimum wages. Seattle, I think, 10 years ago went to $15 an hour. LA, I think, was at a higher minimum wage than the state of California for an extended period of time. So this is a really important part of the conversation because it's really easy to make the decision if you live in LA that minimum wage needs to be raised without thinking about how that would impact small towns in poor states. West Virginia or Kentucky, the Appalachian region in the deep South, could they afford to pay $15 an hour minimum wage? Where in LA, I mean, it just makes sense. If you look at the price of rent alone, you can't afford to live on $7.25 an hour. You can't afford to live barely on $15 an hour. So just to start the entire conversation off, let's understand that we're talking about a federal minimum wage. We are not talking about state or city minimum wages. The first federal minimum wage was in 1938. This was a Franklin Roosevelt New Deal program. Before that, there was no minimum wage. And you can see down here, we're talking about like 25 cents an hour. The minimum wage is the least you can legally pay an employee for his or her work, although of course we know that some people do get paid under the table, which means that they don't report their wage to the government, and these people can get paid more or less. It's up to them, right? If it's under the table. This is also a political issue. We know that generally speaking, the Democratic Party, especially candidate Bernie Sanders in 2016, was calling to raise minimum wage to $15 an hour. In 2016, Hillary Clinton said no, she prefers $10 an hour, I believe, or maybe it was 12. Recently, President Joe Biden is calling for a $15 an hour minimum wage. Of course, this is 5 years after this election. And President Trump, when he was running in 2016, at one point, he said there should be no federal minimum wage. It should be totally up to the company. He then kind of backtracked and said, no. But I don't think we should raise it. And then in 2020, when he was running against Biden, I think he said he prefers a $10 minimum wage. So this is a political issue. And a lot of the time, it's, Democrats asking for a higher minimum wage, Republicans asking for a lower minimum wage. Oftentimes, because Democrats are from states that are more populated, that have bigger cities, which have higher cost of living. I'm going to tell you guys a story about myself. When I myself was a college kid, 21, I went out and I did a year of college in the city of Toledo, Ohio, in the upper Midwest. This was not a rich city. I was paying $250 a month rent, okay, for a pretty decent sized one bedroom. I'm in a not so great part of town. My good buddy who lived here in our town was paying $600 a month. Okay, now that's obviously a lot different. That was for a teeny little studio in North Hollywood, but more than twice what I was paying for a smaller place in also a not so great neighborhood. Because life costs more here. Rents are more here. House costs are more here. Heck, milk at the store costs more here. Everything costs more here. So when you say, I want to increase minimum wage, well, depending on where you live, that makes a lot of sense. If I own a small business in Toledo, Ohio, or in Kentucky or West Virginia, maybe doubling the hourly that I pay for my employees would hurt me. And then of course the answer is, well, would I raise prices in the store um, to try and make up for the fact that I have to pay, Marina over there double what I've been paying him? Um, Probably. So now everyone's going to be paying a little more. Now, what does that also means? That Marina is no longer, getting food stamps because he's making enough money to not be on food stamps anymore. So there is that whole balance, right? I mean, look, let's face the facts. If you're making $7.25 an hour, you're working 40 hours a week. You're on food stamps, man. You're on welfare. You're not paying the bills. You're probably on Section 8 housing. You're getting a ton of government help, which, by the way, comes out of my tax dollar, right? So if you want to try and stop borrowing and lower government spending, one way to do that would be to make employers pay their employees more, so that they would get off food stamps and welfare programs. So these are complex issues. And I think one of the keys to understanding it is the concept of federal minimum wage versus state minimum wages. All of that being said, I pull up a few interesting graphs and such for you, things that I'm gonna try and bring into the conversation. First off, that didn't work for me. Come on. First off, some people would suggest that if you compare minimum wage to inflation, of course, is the amount of money that the amount of costs of everything go up in society. That in 1968, minimum wage would have been $10.50 an hour, and today it is as low as $7.25 an hour. So people suggest, maybe we should hook up minimum wage with inflation. In 2012, presidential candidate Republican Mitt Romney said, let's just hook up minimum wage with inflation, and then we won't have to have this argument all the time. Kind of a middle of the road idea during that period of less extreme politics in 2012, which kind of weird to say. Would minimum wage make you cut your workforce? Well, most people say if it's 10.10 an hour, the answer is no, I wouldn't. Would it make you reduce hiring? Maybe. Would it make you raise prices? Probably. Okay, which comes out of my pocket because I'm buying McDonald's. I'm not actually. Oh, why would I say McDonald's? What's wrong with me? I'm buying In-N-Out. Am I going to pay more for my burger? Probably, if minimum wage goes up, right? Here's a question. How many people are making minimum wage, right? Well, in California, it's less than 1% of people make a federal minimum wage. This is something that impacts the poorer states, Kentucky, West Virginia, Tennessee, the Deep South, Mississippi, a lot more than it affects the richer states. California's a richer state, guys. I'm not sure if you're aware. I hope you are. So here's another number. How many people earn federal minimum wage? 1.6 million workers in our country earn a federal minimum wage, which is about 2%. So not that many. But yeah, you say, but hey, Marina, 1 out of every 8 Americans lives in California, and we're above the federal minimum wage. New York, Seattle, Washington, many states are above the federal minimum wage. So that, let's look at how many make the state minimum wage. Okay, I don't have those numbers, but those are interesting things to take a look at and try and better understand this question. And again, I'm in the spot that I try to find myself in every day. I don't know the right answer to this question. I think that probably localities, I think it's great that the states and cities have the right to have their own minimum wage, that they're not stuck on the federal minimum wage. What's the right number? Is 7.25 too low? I don't know. Maybe it is. Is 15 too high? I don't know. Maybe it is, right? What do you think is all that really matters?